Hi, welcome to Third Stall Woodworking. In this video, I'm going to show how I made this sandbox. It has a cover that turns into a bench. The cover helps to keep out animals, rain, snow, just to keep the sand nice and fresh. It's roughly 5 foot by 6 foot or so. 2 benches all on hinges. Everything's galvanized and stainless steel, so it should hold up quite well over the years. I am building this out of this cedar decking material. The reason I chose this is I found that the quality of these boards is really nice because it's meant to be used as a deck. And it's also very economical compared to 2x material or the 1x material. These boards measure 5/4 by 6, which in the end means it's 1 inch thick material by 5.5 inches wide. I have plans available. I designed this and modeled it out. These plans will include all of the material lists, so exactly the boards you need to maximize the wood and save you the most money, as well as the screws and how many, the hinges, the sizes, all of that. And more importantly, it has all of the dimensions and the cut list, so you know exactly which board to cut where. These plans are available on my website, thirdstallwoodworking.com, or on Etsy. Shop is at Third Stall Woodwork. I will have links to both of those in the description. Since these boards are 5.5 inches wide and I want the sandbox to be 11 inches tall, that means I need to edge join these boards. So I've got them here in the clamps. I put some tight bond glue in between the seams, and these parallel clamps are really nice. They should keep this nice and level, and then as I squeeze, I can see the glue coming through, which means I got just the right amount. I went through and cut all of my 10-foot boards in half and then trimmed them to exactly 5 feet. These are the boards for the ends, and in the end, they're going to be actually a little shorter than 5 feet because of the 1 inch on each side from the long pieces. But I left them at 5 feet so that after this is dried, I can trim these edges nice and flush, so I don't have to worry about lining them up perfectly right now while I glue. All right, with all of my boards cut to length and laid out over on the other side of the garage there, just making sure all my dimensions were right, I am just roughly sanding all of these. I've got 120 grit paper in here just to take out any potential slivers or minor imperfections. But more importantly, what I want to do is round these edges over so they're not sharp and smooth everything out. The cover panels that are held together without a hinge need this support brace to connect the two boards so they don't fall apart. Now, this step is definitely optional, but I am going to round one of these corners over. And to do that, I'll use this paint can to trace just a nice round over along there. And now I'll bring it over to the bandsaw and remove that material. I laid all my boards out to make sure that my spacing was even. And to do that, I cut a bunch of these 1/2 inch spacers and laid them in between each board, went to the end, and I got lucky and everything measured out as planned. The next thing I did was clamped one of those 1/2 inch spacers quite a bit longer to this end board so that I can butt it right up against the frame with a 1/2 inch overhang. I also made this smaller 1/2 inch spacer that I can put on the end, and then I'll slide that into place. And then I know I have a 1/2 inch here, 1/2 inch here overhang, and a 1/2 inch down there. I'm preparing to cut a 15-degree angle on this board. Well, a 15-degree angle is too steep for a miter saw to cut. So what I'm going to do is use this jig. I've got a couple boards here. These are 2 3/4-inch boards that will give me just more of a solid base to put the board against. I've got those nailed together, and then I put a sacrificial backer board clamped to the fence of the miter saw so that I can place this board up against there, turn this to the correct angle, and I'll be able to cut that steep angle. But before I do that, I need to get this ready. So I put this just over where the blade will go, and this fence has not yet been cut. So when I make my cut, it'll square everything up. The board with the angled seat rest is flipped over. So that's this piece here and the angled pieces underneath. And then this is kind of the center of each of the 2 halves. And that is flipped upside down. Now I can mark over 10 inches where I want my hinge. And I've got this centered. And I'll just mark out my holes. Now I can take my drill bit with a piece of tape, but I don't risk drilling through this wood, and drill some pilot holes. All right, I've got a sandbox here. To set this thing up, I put these handles on here, one on each side. I think this will help, especially with kids reaching on the side to open it up, but you lift and pivot. Pivot! And it is as simple as that. I'm loving these benches. They feel good. The angles are all really nice, and it's just going to be awesome to have a cover to keep things from digging in the sand and other animals from trying to play in here. And of course, keeping that yard debris out of here. I'm not quite done yet. I can't fill this with sand and put it out in the yard because I still need to stain and seal this wood so that it lasts as long as I can get out of it. The first thing I need to do is just disassemble. So I'll take all the metal pieces off and separate these into more manageable pieces to carry, and then use a wood cleaner on it. That'll remove the tannins and help that stain and sealer stick to the wood. This chemical, I guess, cleaner, which definitely smells toxic, sits on here for 15 minutes, and then I'll come through and rinse it all and then scrub it with a soft bristle brush. And that is supposed to prepare it for stain and sealer. We'll see how it works. Next, I waited 15 minutes, and I'm gonna use a stiff bristle brush and just kind of scrub this wood down to really get that cleaner into the wood fibers. It will help pull all the mill glaze and any imperfections out of the wood. So after I do this, I'm going to rinse the whole thing off again, the garden hose. I'll let it dry, just leave it out in the driveway. I've got some blocks set up over there. All right, I got the sandbox back here and I dropped it into place and put a level on it, and noticed it was probably 2 inches out of level on this front side, so it was sitting high. And it doesn't need to be perfectly level, but I want to not feel like I'm leaning when you're sitting on the bench. So I marked off where I need to cut, and I'll remove 2 inches or so of the sod, and hopefully it drops in nice and level. I've got an extra section of landscape fabric, and this definitely isn't necessary, but I figure I might as well put this down. If nothing else, when the girls dig too deep, instead of getting down into the dirt and mixing that in with the sand, and at least this will kind of be the notification that you're at the bottom. If nothing else, it'll help keep any sand or any grass or weeds from growing up through the sand over time. I'm just using a staple gun with some 1/4-inch staples and attaching this. filled my truck with 1/2 cubic yard of Sandbox sand. This is really nice Sandbox sand. You can make some nice sand castles with it. If you don't have access to that, you can definitely buy Sandbox sand bags from your home center and fill this up. I replaced all of the screws that came with this hardware with stainless steel screws just to be safe. Probably not necessary, but most things I do aren't. And just a demo of how it works. Close it all up, and it is critter proof. Plans for this are going to be in the description and always available at thirdstallwoodworking.com or on Etsy. Thanks for watching.